G'day, it's Robbie here again. Well, in the last number of videos I've been working on this backyard melting furnace made out of an old LPG gas cylinder. It's turned out really good. And I did a cast in some aluminium, melted aluminium, no problem whatsoever. So now it's time to move on to brass. So today we'll try some brass in it and just see how it goes. This is the burner I'm using. I'll show you how much heat it puts out. How's that grab it, boys? That's pretty fierce and mean big flame. So if this won't melt brass, nothing will. Okay, let's get ready for it. This is the crucible I'm going to use. This old steel one made out of a oil filter container off of a tractor engine. And we've got some scrap brass in there. It's all pretty clean, no chrome on it. And we'll try melting that down. That should be enough. I'll just make up a former the same as I did for the aluminium. I'll have to use sand because apparently if you try and cast into a steel tube, the brass sticks to the tube, apparently, to the steel, even though it's got a similar coefficient of expansion to aluminium. Bit less, but it's still a lot more than steel. So, you know, you'd think that when it cools down it would shrink and separate from the walls of the steel tube. But anyway, for now we'll use sand. We know that's not going to be an issue, and I can try the steel moulds later, see if it's true what they say. But anyway, for now I'll make up a sand mould. Well, that's it guys, I've melted some down. Didn't melt much, I should have added more brass I suppose, but this is just a test run. We'll see what happens. It certainly melted it pretty easy. It's hard to judge sort of how much brass you need, so now I'll take it out of the mould and see what we got. It won't be a huge amount. Oh, well, it's a useful amount. We'll try machining it later and see how it comes up. Anyway, it definitely melts brass, no problem whatsoever. It's just a bit difficult judging it because you get a lot of dross on top, and there was a lot more there than I expected. So I might have actually overheated it. I might have heated it longer than necessary. What I thought was brass was actually dross build up. So anyway, we'll see how it goes. When I did that, I did it outside. I did it downwind. Had all the protective gear on, including the face mask, which I always wear. And it didn't do any of the bad things that some people said it will do. I mean, it did smoke off the zinc. I kept well out of that. But only towards the end, when it was ready, well, then it started smoking. So that's probably a good indicator. You know, once you see smoke coming out, well, it's probably ready to pour. A lot of white oxide in the crucible, but that made it a bit tricky to sort of judge when it was melted, because there was quite a layer on top. So I thought it was not melted, but it actually probably was. So I might have overheated it. We'll have to see. But anyway, it was liquid. And then getting the dross off, a little bit tricky. It came off, but when I poured, it stayed behind, so it actually poured off okay. I had heard things that you had to preheat the ladle to get the dross off, but I didn't, and there was no problem. And the mould wasn't preheated, it was just a sand mould, just ATF and fine sand. Same as I use for aluminium. It would work fine, no problem whatsoever. There was no spitting or spattering, and yeah, it all went good. So here it is after I rinsed it out off under the tap. I'll run the wire buff over it and see how she comes up. Well, it looks pretty awesome, doesn't it? There's a fair weight there. So now we'll clean it up on the lathe and see what sort of finish we've got underneath the outer crust or the outer surface. Very interesting. Well, the brass poured all right, but it's got a big defect in it. So I can machine that away, but I won't. I'll remelt this, and I'll try it in a steel mould to see what happens. Oh well, that's it for now. I'll have to improve the technique a bit and make sure that I get everything 100% right. That could have been caused by some of the dross not being removed either, because I tried to remove it and then it was like powdery stuff. It was different to the dross you get from aluminium, totally different. And I didn't want to mess around with the brass cooling down too much, so I just poured it, and the dross seemed to stay behind, but I think some of it probably went in. So yeah, the old technique needs a bit of perfecting, but I think the actual, well, it certainly melts okay, and I think the actual concept is pretty good. So that's it for now. We'll do a bit more experimenting and see how we get on. Catch you next time. Cheers.